At the 11th hour, Kentucky Republicans resurrect, expand, and pass an anti-trans bill. Hang on 1 second. Let's watch this video. It's only 2 minutes. Let me turn that on.
Absolute, willful, intentional hate. Hate for a small group of people that are the weakest and the most vulnerable among us. You need to come back to these people and you need to ask them, why did you get elected? What are you doing here? What was your purpose in choosing to serve? Because if it was to help the least among us, you are failing miserably.
I stand today to speak against a bill that is hateful, that is discriminatory, and that is beneath the dignity of this chamber and this Commonwealth.
I find it so hypocritical that people are condemning us for this legislation, but can turn the blind eye to 50 years of Roe versus Wade that killed 63 million innocent babies. So don't lecture me about caring for children when you will openly support the murder of innocent children. It's inexcusable, it's sickening, and hypocritical.
But I always get confused when I see those with power exercising that power unnecessarily, irrationally, over those that do not have that kind of power.
Once that brain develops, they can't go back. They've cut that part off, it's gone. We're not talking about a minor thing. For goodness sakes, 18-year-olds you have to be 18 to get a tattoo. We're talking about removing healthy body parts that you cannot put back on.
Never mind.
Let me be clear. This bill will kill Kentucky kids. And if the people that vote in favor of this bill do not know this, it is only because they do not want to know this.
So there was a lot in that video. There was some that I agreed with, some that I didn't. Also, Marina, 100%. Nice whataboutism, old guy. We can add body parts, ma'am, not just reduce. Also, sometimes they are remodeled and not removed either. Exactly, exactly. That shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what a sex change operation includes, you know. This story discusses suicide and mental health issues. If you're in crisis, help is available. Call the National 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988 or chatting online. If you or someone you know needs trans peer support, you can call Trans Kentucky at 859-448-5428 or visit their website. Nationally, you can call the Trans Lifeline at 877-565-8860 or visit their website. LGBTQ plus youth can get their support from the Tramer Project by calling 866-488-7386 or visiting their website. Keep those numbers in mind, okay? Seriously. If you're ever in crisis, reach out. There is help for you. The National Trans Lifeline, the National Suicide Lifeline, I've been in touch with them constantly over the last few months. They are incredible sources of help, okay? There is help for you available, so please reach out if you find yourself in need, okay? We don't want to lose any more trans people. All right. When lawmakers went home Wednesday night, it looked as if Kentucky's marquee omnibus anti-trans legislation was on its deathbed, being slowly killed by Republican discord. But on Thursday, a multi-hour legislative sprint suddenly resurrected, expanded, and rushed a nearly identical proposal through the Kentucky legislature and to the governor's desk with hours to spare. Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat, now has 10 days to either veto or sign Senate Bill 150 into law. Beshear is widely expected to veto the bill. Kentucky's Republican-led legislature, though, will be able to override his veto when it returns for the final 2 days of the legislative session on March 29th and 30th. The backlash was swift. The ACLU of Kentucky called the bill unconstitutional, vowing legal action should it become law. GLI, Louisville's Chamber of Commerce, said it was extremely disappointed in the legislation. The Tramer Project, an organization that works to prevent suicide in LGBTQ youths, condemned Senate Bill 150, calling it one of the most extreme anti-trans measures in the nation. First, this is not a Kentucky measure. The genesis of this measure springs from a national agenda of fear-mongering. Terry Brooks, the executive director of Kentucky Youth Advocates, wrote in a statement, "This bill and the processes of its passage reveal why there is such disillusionment about Frankfurt," Brooks said, adding that the Republican-dominated legislature frequently demands Bashir be transparent, but then pulls what can kindly be called parliamentary shenanigans. The saga began shortly before 1 p.m. Thursday when a surprise House Education Committee meeting was called during the House's lunch break. Within 6 minutes, Senator Max Wise and Representative David Meade, both Republicans, sat in a committee room presenting a new, expanded version of Senate Bill 150 for committee vote. As lawmakers and opponents alike rushed into the room, the duo explained the changed bill, which was so new not even the House clerk had a digital copy to share after the vote, let alone have the bill available to the general public at the time. Senate Bill 150's initial provisions, including one allowing teachers to misgender their students, remain intact. A new section added a ban on gender-affirming medical care for trans youths, despite medical experts and their professional associations saying such care is safe and effective treatment for children with gender dysphoria. Doctors would be required to set a timeline to detransition children already taking puberty blockers or undergoing hormone therapy. They would be allowed to continue offering care as they taper a child's treatments if immediately taking them off the treatment could harm the child, the bill says. Schools would not be allowed to discuss sexual orientation or gender identity with students of any age, a key provision of Don't Say Gay bills across the country. Schools would not be allowed to talk about sexually transmitted diseases or human sexuality before 6th grade and would need to require parental consent in 6th grade and up. A provision requires school districts to craft bathroom policies that, at a minimum, will not allow trans kids to use the bathroom tied to their gender identities. In a change from House Bill 470, a sweeping anti-trans bill held up in the Senate, Senate Bill 150 would allow children to legally change their names or alter their birth certificates as part of their transitioning. I want to take a little break here from reading the article. I want to tell you, okay? In 1992, I was 2 years old, okay? I was adopted by my grandparents. I was offered the ability to change my name, and I did. At 2 years old. The attorney for my grandparents looked over at me in front of the judge and said, "What would you like your name to be, son?" Of course, I was 2. I wasn't trans back then. And I stated confidently and firmly what I wanted my name to be. And so it was. And I have lived with that name since 1992. Now you tell me that the Kentucky legislature should not allow children to change their names. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting bullshit is what this is. An hour after the committee meeting was first called, and about 30 minutes after its vote, the bill came up for a vote on the House floor. After more than 2 hours of lopsided debate, nearly every Democrat spoke, often at length, against the bill. Senate Bill 150 passed out of the House 75-22. Representative Ashley Tackett Lafferty, Democrat of Martin, was the sole Democrat in the House to vote for the bill. Republican Representatives Kim Bonta, Stephanie Dietz, and Killian Timony voted against. Representative Kim Moser, a Republican, passed on her vote despite opposing a similar bill earlier in the session. Early in the debate, Representative Lindsey Burke, Democrat of Lexington, questioned how giving a 6-minute notice before holding a committee meeting doesn't violate the state's open meeting law which requires a 24-hour notice before public meetings. Her question was not answered on the floor. That's because they knew you wouldn't like the answer. That's because it does violate that meeting law. That's exactly why that question went unanswered. Michael Abate, an open records lawyer, said someone can file a complaint over a violation of the open meetings law, but that complaint would go to lawmakers to be addressed or not. Wise, the bill's sponsor, is running to be Kentucky's next lieutenant governor, the second in command of the Commonwealth. The new language was posted online after the House floor debate began. Nearly every House Democrat spoke against the measure, making several motions to stall or alter Senate Bill 150, challenging its timeline and stressing how it will impact children's future, particularly in Kentucky. Representative Josie Raymond, Democrat of Louisville, said the theme of the legislative session is ignorance. Ignorance of children's individuality, children's agency, children's value, children's futures, and children's understanding of who they are, she said. The disdain that this body shows for children astounds me. Raymond then paused, softly weeping at her desk on the House floor for several seconds before quietly saying she will be voting no. Senate Bill 150 quickly made its way back to the Senate, which needed to agree with the House's changes. The rush on Senate Bill 150 came a day after the Kentucky Senate paused discussions on House Bill 470, an omnibus anti-trans bill with similar language to Senate Bill 150, over disagreements over how far the bill will go. A floor amendment to House Bill 470 adopted late last Wednesday softened some of the language around gender-affirming medical care, gaining some GOP votes but losing others. Gone was that infighting during Senate Bill 150's final Senate vote on Thursday evening. Senator Karen Berg, a Louisville Democrat who lost her trans son Henry to suicide in late December, voted first, an affirmative no. This is absolutely willful hate for a small group of people that are the weakest and most vulnerable, she said. As Republican after Republican, including those who previously expressed concern about the bill going too far, voted in favor, Berg alternated between nodding with some points and slowly crying. The Senate passed Senate Bill 150 on a near party line vote, 30-7. Senator Danny Correll, Republican of Benton, was the sole Republican to vote against the bill, and Senator Robin Webb, Democrat of Grayson, voted in favor. The moment the bill officially cleared the Senate, opponents in the gallery screamed and shouted expletives at the lawmakers on the floor below. Some took direct aim at Senate President Robert Stivers and Senator Lindsey Tichenor, a freshman Republican who sponsored an unsuccessful bill to restrict drag shows. A recent Mason-Dixon poll question, paid for by the Fairness Campaign, found 71% of respondents felt decisions over some gender-affirming care for trans use should be up to the parents, not the state government. About 86% of trans or non-binary youth said political debate around trans issues negatively impacted their mental health, according to a 2022 study from the Tramer Project. More than half of trans and non-binary youth who responded to the same survey said they seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, and 24% of them attempted suicide. Kentucky lawmakers considered at least 10 anti-LGBTQ bills in the 2023 session, contributing to a national surge of legislation aimed at the LGBTQ community, particularly trans youth. The Trans Legislation Tracker is following more than 460 bills across 44 states this year. By its count, 15% of anti-trans bills passed into law in 2022, 26 out of 174 bills. Kentucky was one of the states that passed such a measure. Last year, the Kentucky legislature easily passed a bill to ban trans girls from joining girls' sports teams, overlooking pleas from trans individuals and their advocates, and overriding a Bashir veto. After the House committee vote ended and the bill sponsors and most Republicans filed out, opponents and a handful of supportive lawmakers remained behind, hugging and crying. Chris Hartman, who leads the Fairness Campaign, decried the rush process from a seat in the increasingly empty room. This is the cheapest trick they can pull. Timony, a Lexington Republican, remained near the front of the room. The former educator faced a surprise attack ad campaign this year for his previous opposition to anti-trans legislation, and he voted against Senate Bill 150 in committee too. When I stand before God on my judgment day, he's going to say, Who did you love? Timoni said, and I'm going to say everybody. Wow. Just incredible stuff. You can see the passion in which these people argued for trans rights. In that video that we watched at the top of the article, you can see the passion in those people's eyes. You can hear it in their voices. This is something that personally affects many people, many families, many individuals. And you can see that reflected in their attitudes about this bill. It's disgusting that the legislature feels like they have to pull cheap tricks like this in order to gain any kind of power. Absolutely disgusting. So, that's pretty much it for our news coverage today. There was one other article I wanted to read, but I think I will save that for another time. Maybe tomorrow or something like that. I think would be good. Do a little stream tomorrow or something like that. So I just want to say we talked about a lot of anti-trans stuff today. Again, if you need help, reach out to the suicide hotline. If you're in crisis, reach out to the National Trans Support Network. These are all very good resources. There are resources available for you if you feel like you are in crisis. So please reach out to those, okay? I want to say thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you, Sasha, Zoe, Marina. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you all for coming out and visiting the stream today. I really appreciate your support. I'm going to be, for the remainder of the evening, probably editing a bunch of this for the YouTube. Segments will go up starting on Monday. I have surgery on Tuesday, so I have stuff scheduled for the rest of the week, so I don't have to, take any time away or anything like that. Hopefully, excuse me, hopefully we'll see that my surgeries end soon. I'm very much looking forward to being able to open my mouth again. That would be nice. But yeah, thank you all for coming out and showing your support. I truly appreciate all of you. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Take care of those close to you. Take care of everyone around you. Take care of your family. Be well, okay? I love you.